Hello everyone, Luke here, and let's not beat around the bush here. There is so much that we have to cover in this chapter, so without further ado, all we're going to do right now is just get on with it. Alright, so this will be chapter 214, titled Stoneworld's Earth Defense Force. Sounds like a name for a Power Rangers team, like, Go Go Earth's Defense Force, you mighty morphin Earth Defense Force. Anyway, the chapter starts off with another consecutive colour page, which is interesting because this colour page and the previous colour page can kind of be smushed together to create one big image. Although, for some strange reason, Chrome isn't in either of these colour pages. Maybe he's the traitor, who knows? But anyway, quite interesting cover page. So we get Senku, the other half of Senku, holding the world in the palm of his hands, quite literally. And we see Sinu with his claw just going all over his face. Maybe Sinu is the traitor. We don't know. It could be anyone. And we've got Luna, Yuzuriya. No, it's Yuzuriya with her headband. Yeah, I'm still on to you, Yuzuriya. You thought I was going to retire that running gag. No, Yuzuriya's headband is connected to the whyman. That is connected to the whyman in some way. But we also have Taiju there and Magma just holding up. I assume it's meant to be the calculator. But yeah, pretty interesting colour page and a nice contrast and segment of the previous colour page. Anyway, the chapter starts off pretty much from the end of the last chapter, where we have the Medusa basically activating itself. And okay, even though my idea of the Medusa breaking apart is kind of thrown off the wall in this chapter, I still did call one thing: it was an explosion, because the glass did break. The glass vacuum that the Medusa was in, it did break, so I still call that technically. Anyway, moving on, we have Gen and Yo being petrified, as they're like, nobody even messed with that thing, but the petrification beam all on its own, it's activating, and we see that, okay, the vacuum and where they were actually keeping the Medusa was on the Perseus. Makes sense, makes the most logical sense for it to actually be on the Perseus. And we see Senku and the others just getting just going crazy about this happening, or including Rui and Suiki going, oh no, that awful light, but how did it happen? And we get the return of the full Suiki helmet. Yeah, and we get Kroku say debating, go, if this is the Whyman's big attack, and Chrome say, we're totally done in for this. Is this the big one meant to finish the job? But Ryusui, being the intuition guy that he is, and Senku being the smart one of the group, they both conclude that, wait a minute, this petrification beam is actually different. I wonder if it's actually going to actually engulf the whole world. And so they continue to stand back as they observe the Medusa sort of like slowing down a peg as they go right about to here. But just in case, let's back up another 2 meters. Then we're golden, and we see just the most badass, one of the most badass moments from Senku, as he just stares down, quite literally stares down the petrification beam, and it's just like, yeah, I know you're not going to petrify me, and everyone else is just freaking out by this. Before Senku and Ryusui say the petra beam speed is proportional to its range, and we have plenty of chances to observe. This one speed indicates a radius of about 20 meters. Okay, so it's great that they actually remembered, like, yes, the speed of the petrification beam is indicating of its radius. So the smaller the radius, the slower the beam is actually going to be. And this is no different in that regard. Once the petrification beam has finished activating, we see them revive Gen and Yo. Okay, so I guess everyone's assumption about the petrification beam being a more permanent state, that's kind of completely thrown out of the window here. As we see Ukyo opening the safe with his eyes still in shadows. Yeah, gotta keep our eyes glued to Ukyo in this case. Although some people can't imagine who Party Jams thinks that this is a bit too obvious now that Ukyo is the traitor. But anyway, we see that the vacuum tube has actually broken away, but the Medusa is actually intact. And they start to question of like what actually happened here before they say, right, we need to interview the people who are at the scene of the crime here, and we get them interrogating Yo and Gen, and Yo is like, it wasn't me. I mean, sure, we were the last ones out there, and I may have wondered how what would have happened if I shouted from the outside of the case, but that was a joke. It seriously was a joke. It was a joke. Yeah, Yo, you're not making your case you're not making yourself look any more innocent when you're talking like that. As Yo is spazzing out about the fact that he's being interrogated and being accused of actually setting off the Medusa, Gen ensures relax, Yo, your blame is here. Which for once, Gen is not messing around here. He's actually telling the truth here. It's pretty obvious Yo was not the one that actually activated this. Before Gen starts to explain like all the sequences of events that actually happened, which was first that there was a clamour inside the safe, and the second was the sound of the glass cracking. Third was the click, and fourth was the flash, which again it does look more like an explosion here. Tiny little one, but still an explosion. Now with the glass cracking, that Party Jams, when we were talking about it on Discord, actually brought up that that this is something that can actually happen, where you can actually get your voice to a to a certain frequency that can actually cause glass to break apart, or to actually get the Medusa activating. And the person that we can know that would have the capability of doing that is a sonar person. Not really sure what the name of it was. Again, I've completely forgotten it. So he'll probably put it in his comment when he comments on this video. But yeah, basically, his logic here from the Reddit post is that Ukyo somehow manipulated it so that it went off at a certain point with a certain amount of frequency that was added to his voice, which also causes the glass to break as well. But anyway, Senku goes on to say that, well, he goes on to think that the clamour inside the safe could have just been the vacuum tube cracking, but we can't be sure about that. And yeah, I'm glad that they're bringing all of this up, like they're coming up with all the explanations of what could possibly be and what it could have possibly be of why this actually happened. And I'm glad that this is actually making the story slow down a little bit, because again, it's been way too easy, and now we've actually got some conflicts going on here. That they don't know who it was that activated this, or why. But one thing's for sure is that it wouldn't possibly be whyman, as we will soon explain. Before Gen goes on to say, meanwhile, no living soul so much as touched or spoke to the safe or the device. And they continue to go on by saying, the light came out all on its own. Sounds to me like whyman has really started his attack on humanity from upon the moon. Activating it remotely, but how? And Sai even brings up, like, perhaps it's radio waves, which a lot of people were bringing up, like, why couldn't whyman just attack using radio waves? And Ryu's reaction brings up the most logical answer to this question. If you could do something like that, why not do that from the start? Makes the most sense. Like, if he could actually do that, like activate it through radio waves, why don't he just do that from the start, rather than biding his time? Unless maybe that's kind of like, if the whyman is an AI, maybe that's kind of like a part of its plan, because the thing that we learned in the last chapter is that AIs, they tend to do stuff that are like, wait a minute, that does not make any sense. And maybe this is one of the more indications of the fact that whyman is an AI, because it's doing something that does not make any sense except to itself. They continue on by saying, sweet of him not to zap the whole world, don't you think? And Suika goes, too many mysteries behind this. Yeah, you think Suika, before Karoku mentions that in the wake of this little attack, who knows what could hit us next. We gotta take the fight to whyman hard and fast. And Gen's like, as expected of dear Karoku, is that so? Perhaps. Yeah, I don't think you're going to be taking the whyman that fast, Karoku, so you might want to settle down a little bit, because you're just so keen to rush into battle sometimes that you have to kind of be put down a peg. Case in point, when you wanted to go and fight Tsukasa because Chrome was kidnapped. So yeah. bring it down a peg, because remember the last time you kind of rushed into battle, you kind of got a little bit Swiss cheese during that fight. Chrome obviously brings up the fact that he's trying to build a return vessel, but the fact that they want to get there as fast as possible means that it might only turn out to be a one-way vessel. But of course, we know that's not gonna fly with Chrome, and maybe it won't fly with Ukio, which is probably Ukio probably heard over what Chrome is planning to do, and this is probably part of Ukio's plan to kind of stall for time if Ukio is the traitor, and kind of like get them to see sense like, look, the only reason why I'm doing this is because I don't want you guys to go up on that moon only to be petrified and never see us all again. That's probably what is going through Ukio's mind at this moment in time. But anyway, Ryusui says, that is indeed our starting point. We must nail down the exact location. Whyman is on the moon, but where on its fast surface? Which I'm glad that they honestly brought this up, because it's one thing to actually go to the moon, but it's one thing to like, okay, where exactly on the moon is Whyman? Now, my theory for this, Party Jones had a theory that it would be on the dark side of the moon, which would make the most sense, because if it was on the side of the moon that we could all see, someone would have noticed it. So it's obvious that Whyman's on the dark side of the moon. And my theory to add on to that is that he's in a crater below the Earth, like he's in a crater on the dark side of the moon, so that nobody can physically see him, because Whyman is obviously smart, and he would be smart enough to think like, okay, I don't want people finding me, so I'm going to get into a crater, the crater that goes buried beneath the moon's surface as much as possible, whilst also being on the dark side of the moon. Now, that's the theory that me and him have kind of come to an agreement on. We don't know if that's going to be the case, but it would make the most logical sense. They go on to say that they just can't pick a spot and start searching once they're there, which Senku confirms that it would be a hopeless task, as the moon's diameter is over a quarter of the Earth. So it means it's like over I guess 4.0 million diameter, and Suika comments on how huge that is, and yeah, it is pretty huge. And I love this from Kaku, that the fact that since the moon looks so tiny up in the sky, the folks of Ishigami Village assumed it was like floating lake, showcasing that again they've come so far in the technology trail that just the fact that they're actually going to be able to go to the moon, even though they thought it was a lake at first, shows just how much they've embraced science in general. I just love little tiny moments like that. But anyway, they bring up something that, thankfully, I have been saying for ages should have happened. It should have been numero uno thing that you thought of, which is, in any case, the situation's changed, but we're solely lacking data. I'd love to start experimenting with the Medusa to reproduce that result, but at the same time, it's too risky. That they better remove the battery just to be sure, which, thank God they actually brought that up, as we've seen them remove the battery. Although it's kind of interesting that the fact that Ukio is the one to actually say, yeah, got to remove the battery, and he's the one that's observing Kazuki remove the battery. Almost as if he's like, he wants to know how to remove the battery and therefore be able to put it back in. And we're not the only ones that are thinking this. Again, in this panel right here, you see Gen's like solemn look there as Ukio and Kazuki are working. I think Gen is kind of getting the idea that Ukio was the one that was behind all of this, and this made even more apparent, like just hammer it in, when the very next scene, Gen is quizzing Yo on, while you were bringing it to the US from the to us from the US, did you happen to meddle with the Medusa? And Yo says Ukio was the one carrying that thing the whole time, and I'm surprised nobody else picks up on this suspicion from Gen. It's like, wait, are you saying Ukio's the traitor? I'm surprised nobody actually brings that up. But anyway, they go on to say someone scheduled this. Our dear Senku probably already knows what I'm thinking. That there's a chance someone scheduled this. Okay, so I got the wording round. But, and of course Senku confirms this, although whether or not he suspects Ukio to be the one, that remains to be seen. And Chelsea questions what sort of scheduling did they suggest, and she even brings up someone saying 3 months, 20 meters, or whatever, and she even comments that that Gen is the true detective. Although it's kind of a wrench that throws this into the matter is that as soon as they got the Medusa back, they were already testing it. Like Senku did that one test when Ukyo gave the Medusa back to him. So the question is, can the Medusa take on multiple schedulings at once? That's something that remains to be seen. Judging by this, I assume that they think that it can take on multiple schedulings all at once. Like once one schedule is in, you can schedule it for something else. Although whether or not that's the case, that remains to be seen. They continue to discuss the actual situation with them, saying, "But who would do such a thing? What would they gain? What would they gain from it?" And Chelsea says, "We're all besties. We're all besties now." Yeah, wait until somebody actually is revealed to be the traitor, Chelsea. Then you can make that statement, because that will probably make her mind just explode, like someone who she's gotten so close to over the past few months actually betrays them. Gen says, "Of course, I only mean to say it's physically possible." No, it's not physically possible. You are basically hammering in on the head that you suspect Ukyo, I think, Gen. They go on to say, "Yeah, and as long as we can't study what actually happened, we've got to consider every possibility. For now, the Medusa will be monitored at all hours until under total lockdown." Oh, so it's total lockdown, just like we've been, pretty much the whole world has been for the past 18 months. Anyway, continuing on, they go on to say that it will be monitored under total lockdown when nobody can possibly access it, and they question like how this is actually going to do it. But fortunately, Chelsea has a solution to this, as we get on her Perseus D monkey, obviously a reference to One Piece there. Okay, so they're just building boats left, right, and center here. So it probably only took them like what, a day now to actually build this Perseus. And I apologise for that clicking. Nothing I can do about that. So we'll just go with that. But anyway, they venture off to another part of Japan here, where they go to the mines in Kogashimi, which are full of similar bearing silver ore, as they get salaminum. And I'm with Gen here. I have no idea. Never heard of any of these things. But Senku just reiterates that all poison, and they question like, what deadly force are we meddling with? Before he goes on to explain, next coat a photoelectric surface with these poisons, so that light, meaning whatever the lens sees, is converted to electrical signals, and bam for those signals to the TV screen we've just made. And this is where we get TV cameras or security cameras acquired. After we get the caption of TV cameras acquired, we see the Medusa is being stationed inside this like incredibly contained vault, with like 4 security cameras that are obviously seeing through the metal that's being encased, that is encasing the Medusa, as we see Senku explaining to Jasper and Turquoise like how it all works. And I would love to see their faces right now, because this is probably something that was just like beyond their imagination, like it was with the phone and with the whole going to space and everything like that. This is another thing that's just beyond their imagination. But Gen brings up that, oh, I get it, we're bringing security cameras, and Senku says, yeah, we can't record, but this is good enough for keeping guard. And they've just reinvented the light, and this is when Ryusui gets the realization, like, we've just reinvented the live broadcast, as we see when Mayamiya has finally got her old job back, which I think she's the only modern timer besides the scientist to actually get her job back. So good on her. And we get a reminder of what was said in the last chapter. Even in this new world, whoever controls the Medusa basically owns the world. So basically, Ryusui whoever controls whoever controls the media, sorry I said Medusa there, basically owns the world. So yeah, Ryusui pretty much got what he wanted. He wanted to control the media, and he controls the media now. Although we get a very interesting line from Brody here, but before we get to that, we see a group of people playing baseball. One team is called Sinu Team and the other's called Lee Team. Who the hell is Lee? Who the hell is Lee? But we get a funny moment where they actually whack the ball and it flies all the way to Sinu's caster in Cornsey and flies right past the window as everyone is just cheering and watching the live game. But anyway, going back to what Brody says here, he goes on to say, a Stonewall TV station. Bruh, nobody's betraying our society now that we're offering this. Yeah, that's kind of an odd line considering we were talking about betrayal in this chapter. And of course, Ryusui, being called Ryusui or having Ryu, which means dragon, he has to invent Dragon TV, and of course he has to have a knockoff version of a certain production company, which is 58th century doc. I think you can docs. I think people can obviously realise what it's actually referring to here. But anyway, as Ryusui is getting giddy with excitement, it's like, I control the media, so I control the world. Senku has to bring it down a peg and say, we didn't make the TV cameras for your amusement, Ryusui, but come on, everything in the Stone World is for Ryusui's amusement. And Gen thinks, oh, this is because we're using it to watch the Medusas, but Senku says, nope. This is the real task. It's 10 billion% more important. It's going to tell us whyman's location on the moon. Even our best telescope doesn't show us enough from down here on Earth. But picture this, an eye up in space beaming a live feed down to us so we can scan the moon's surface. And this is where Gen and Chelsea get the realization of like, oh my god, surely you can't mean this, Senku. Yep, we're doing this in order to reveal the whyman's location. Okay, exactly what order are we going through here? And we get them saying, we'll launch a satellite from our stony new world, and that's where the chapter ends with him saying, get excited, as we see Kasuki get excited. Well, everyone else is either confused or just baffled, by this revelation. Okay, so pretty interesting chapter, really well constructed, and moving into the next phase of the final parts. Now, in terms of we're doing this in order, exactly what order are we going? Are we going roadmap, then building, then testing, then launching? Because that will probably take 10 chapters in of itself just to build this damn satellite. So yeah, this was something that I don't think people were expecting to happen in the series, but are glad that it's actually happening, because you would need something like this. You wouldn't be just automatically going to the moon and confronting Whyman without actually having an idea of where he actually is, and also this gives them a chance to have a backup plan just in case something goes wrong when they actually do get an indication of where Whyman actually is on the moon. Now, the thing I want to talk about here is that I'm glad, like I said as well, I'm glad that this is actually slowing down the series, because this revelation actually gives us more to add to the situation. Because, as I said in the Dr. Stone Control Chaos Discord server, we also have to remember the amount of stuff that still needs to happen before we even get to the moon. First of all, being the tests that need to run, because there's going to be a lot of testing that needs to be done, because one false move and that spaceship gets blown up. Then they still have to build the spacesuits themselves. Then they still have to do space training, because there's going to have to do training before you actually go into space and work and discover, like, okay, this is what's going to happen, this is what you're going to eat, this is where you're actually going to go to the toilet or everything like that. Not a very pleasant thing, but it's still something that needs to be explored. Then they need to get Sinu back from Super Alloy, say, along with his engine. Then they need to actually build the spaceship. Then they actually need to get to Treasure Island, and they also need to talk about the return vessel. And not only that, added this satellite to the mix, and that's not even getting to the point where we're even actually getting to blast off yet. So again, I said this to Pie Jams when we were talking in Discord, that I'm going to give it until at least chapter 250 before we actually get the whole initiate lift off mode, because with all this happening, even before this chapter came out and before we actually knew of the satellite, just that alone would have taken at least 30 chapters in of itself, and this is just going to add another like 10 chapters. So giving it at least 46 chapters before we actually get to the moon. So yeah, before we actually get to launch and to get to the moon, and then give it about 5 chapters max before we actually land on the moon. So I reckon around chapter 255, that's where we're actually going to get the landing on the moon, and then where we go from there, that's anyone's guess. But yeah, that's all I had to say on this chapter. Lots of tension, lots of suspicions going on here, and a big massive bombshell of the fact that we are building a satellite. So that's the next step on the final roadmap of the series to confronting Whyman. So yeah, like I said, this because I knew this whole mission of like building a spaceship would just have roadmap after roadmap after roadmap after roadmap, and we've just been getting a lot of roadmaps like with the computer. Now we're probably going to get a roadmap next chapter with the satellite itself. Whew, there's so much to handle in this series at the moment. I don't know if my brain can take it half the time. But anyway, guys, what did you think of this chapter? Let me know. Like, subscribe, comment, all that jazz. And this will be Lasherluke signing off. Later, guys.